Welcome, everybody. My name's Herbert, and today it's Friday. So, despite the stock getting hammered again yesterday, though, there was actually some good news. We heard Elon in a Twitter space yesterday. We'll go through some of the main points that he brought up. That's actually very good news. And we'll also go through this morning. There's some rumors that Tesla China might be selling and delivering more cars than we're expecting. Today, we have Mr. Brian White. He's the host of My Tesla Weekend on YouTube. He's been joining me every Friday. And again, just things work out the way they do. We got this amazing discussion about deliveries and factories. And Brian, perfect guy. He knows everything. He tracks everything that's happening with every factory. So, okay, let's get started with this. Brian, welcome. Thank you for joining me as always. So, first of all, there's this video, and I'm not going to play it, but basically it shows that in China, Giga Shanghai, there's all this activity going, there's just movements and exports are happening. So who knows if that says that they're really busy or not, but I know, Brian, you do look at things like this, right? So any kind of quick comment on whether or not something like this is useful information for us Tesla folks?
Sure. Well, if you watch that actual video, which I have, it doesn't look any busier than usual. It was shot at dawn, and it looks, if anything, a little bit quieter than usual.
Okay.
So in the good news, bad news, no news, I put this in the no news category. But Shanghai's still been cranking, and it looks like their supply line upstream from them has been relatively resilient so far.
Okay. So this morning, 7 o'clock this morning, this at Tesla Shanghai, Tesla China analyst put this out. He said Tesla China will sell more than 100,000 in December. And if the message is correct as usual, so he's getting some, he is based in China, or he or she, whoever it is, and they're very surprised, right? Is this true or not? This person apparently has good track record. I don't know, but from what I've read. So he said, this person says, thread, I was also surprised too, and I can't tell the source, but I'm in China. I can't tell you the source. I will confirm next week. Troy Tesla responds to him, says, do you know how much of that is exports? And he says, sorry, I don't know the exports. Oops. I don't know the exports, export numbers. And then Troy replied back saying, look, his estimates is that he follows car insurance data, and it suggests 50,000 registrations December, not 100,000. And, if you just follow along, and they're producing pretty well about 10 to 12, 15,000 cars per week in China. Here it is. So in 2 weeks, it really should only get you to 50,000. And so what could this be? And somebody said, this sounds impossible, right? And Troy says, yeah, it sounds unlikely. Is there in it? And then somebody asked Troy, is there a notable discrepancy between when he records things by insurance data versus what the actual reported sales are? He goes, they're very close. So he feels confident that tracking insurance data is correct. And the only other thing he said was that unless the discrepancy is because of not retailers buying it, but rather like leasing companies and so forth, Gary Black says, if this is true, he's estimating $80,000. This would be big. What's your reaction to all of this?
So Troy's asking the right questions. When you say 100, you don't mean 100 domestically. 100,000 domestically would be, that'd be amazing. That'd be breathtaking. But 100,000 is kind of the Shanghai run rate. That's 1.2 million a year, which is kind of where they're already at. I'd have to go back and look at previous months, but China's running big numbers. It would not surprise me if 100,000 is the run rate, including exports. Now that, if we want to try and make it make sense, all we have to do is say how. So good domestic sales, believable. Record domestic sales, less believable. Strong exports, record exports even, believable. But is it sales or is it production? And if it's sales, oh baby, are we in for a Q4? But if it's production, that's still great. That's still fine, because there are a lot of markets that are just now opening up to the Model Y. So these they could have made them. They could have put Ys on a ship to Australia and New Zealand. They've been selling those like crazy lately. And especially as they expand to include, all the different variants of the Model Y, the market continues to expand. And so is it possible? Absolutely. Um, I think 80,000 might be a little bit low for the estimate. But I think 100,000 is real high. And from what I'm looking at from the drone footage, I don't see anything that would suggest that this quarter is going to be insane. A record quarter, sure. An insane one, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, when Troy measures insurance data, that is basically domestic sales in China. Is he not tracking exports?
Oh, he tracks them separately.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know all of his methodology. I do not pay for his Patreon because I'm afraid that having access to that information would color my opinion of my own numbers. And I don't know if it would be seen as disrespectful, and I don't want to step on any toes, but he has deep metrics for every slice of the pie, as it were. But no, he's absolutely tracking the exports separately. I'm just not sure what his method is.
So, right. So here's, tell me how this might appear for a Q4, right? So I'm kind of confused a little bit, but basically the guidance for Q4, and they did not change it. And after Q3, Zach Kirkhorn said just under 50% deliveries, and that would be 465,000 deliveries. And the street consensus right now is 430,000. So what would this number, if this is true, what would it bump that up into? And what's your expectation for Q4?
So it would only take us to about 445, 450. I don't think Zach is super concerned with getting the guidance exactly right. I think Zach's vision is long-term, and long-term it's going to remain 50%. So you said what would be 50%? And that's 50% from last year, right? 465. Yeah. It's in the ballpark. It's in the ballpark. And what's crazy to think about is, do you remember when we hit 500,000 a year?
Yeah.
That was seconds ago. And now we're talking about that many a quarter. Yeah. So that, because as you know, busted growth story, no demand.
Okay. So at this point, you're still pretty confident that there's a possibility that they'll hit that number. It's unlikely, but it's still looking okay. And that's when you're just kind of like giving it it's a rumor. You don't know if it's going to do anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately, I don't really think it matters as much, but it is interesting. And it'll tell us it'll tell us how much credence to give this Tesla Shanghai account in the future.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you for
that. Because I've had rumors from inside the factory that from people who I verified were real employees that didn't pencil out. That turned out to be inaccurate, and it's not because they were malicious. Sometimes they're just zoomed in a way that doesn't allow them to see the bigger picture.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Brian. So let's move on to another big thing that happened. Was yesterday, Elon attended a Twitter space. I joined. Everybody joined. There was like, I don't know, half a million people, 450,000 people that actually ended up watching this thing. It was wonderful. It was really wonderful because, he was answering questions and he was able to address some of the things that us Tesla investors were hoping for. So a couple of things, we're going to go through this quickly and have you kind of reply to a few things when you're the ones that you might have more insight on. But basically, he's confirmed that, he's been saying this a lot, that interest rates is a big deal because it's going to cause a major recession for next year. And because people are, can actually, put in bonds, rather treasury bonds, that they won't invest in the stock market. So it's crashing the stock market. It's going to crush the car market. So he's been pretty consistent about that this is going to impact the demand for cars. And Tesla is no exception. There's a lot of other car manufacturers. So things that are purchased through debt are going to be affected because of the interest rates. Demand is softening globally, even where his political comments have very little impact. And that's why he does not give his political comments a lot of credence in terms of its impact to the stock. And then he clarifies later that the Tesla delivery is amazing and perfect. So now here's the point that I wanted your opinion on. So he iterated that he prefers He wants to optimize for volume sales next year and less on gross margin, because Tesla has a lot of demand levers that they can pull, but and when they do, they can raise the volume up and have very little gross margin at all. What's your opinion about that, and what's your reaction when you heard that?
So the interest rates absolutely crushing. It's yeah, it makes banks less likely to lend you quite as much money, which especially on higher margin, higher cost items is a problem. And yeah, it's not unique to Tesla. It's everybody. Demand soft globally. Yes. Softer. I'd say it's still doing great, especially for electric vehicles, which are the only ones that really have a lead time right now, that have any kind of backlog at all. Will Tesla sell vehicles, even at no profit, to grow? Yes, absolutely. Because so many of the car, once FSD is complete, we've got 12 grand per car times 90% of whatever we sell as an addressable market. It's huge. It's the HP printer model, if you will. How many printers did they sell at no profit just to get that ink flowing, baby?
And Elon actually was very confident about that. He brought up that FSD could add to gross margin. So, okay, we're gonna have to go through this quickly, and not if we skip some of this anyways. He did confirm that Twitter is easy, or 1/10 the complexity of running Tesla. That his cognitive load to manage Twitter was temporary. It shouldn't go beyond the next month and further. And that he just continues to say that his involvement of Twitter last month did not in any way impact the Tesla fundamentals. He's not going to sell any more stock next 2 years. There's some fine words that he said about that. He's not missed a single Tesla meeting, and he expects much more economic drama. So he does think that next year, he compares it to possibly 2009. That's how severe the massive recession could be. Of course, it all depends if the Fed continues to do what they think. And this is where he's saying that, the companies that are making the expensive products, that's who's going to be hit the most. But Tesla is well suited for this. They'll be fine. So let's get to some of his comments about refining capacities needed for lithium. They're building a refinery in Corpus Christi. Somebody said that typically when you build a refinery, it takes 7 years. He says, well, we're expecting it to be 2 years. What's your thoughts on that comment?
So you're right back in my wheelhouse here, and I love it. The Texas stuff is exciting. So why would you even get into lithium refining? That's a tired, old, unexciting business. And the answer is, it appears that they have a disruptive technology for it. If you find that you have the disruptive technology, you'd be crazy not to get into it. Meaningful volume in 2 years? Why not? I think the reason legacy refineries take so long is that's just how it's always been done.
Yeah.
If that's our financial horizon, that's just what we do. Why must it take? It's not like the factory has to cure. So that is all very, very exciting. I know that there was questions about the cathode factory in Texas, and they are doing nickel chemistries there. And that's not a surprise. Nickel chemistry is what goes into the 4680s, the 21 set, pretty much everything except the LFPs. And we haven't seen them taking steps to make their own LFP batteries yet. Though that could obviously change in the future. CATL and BYD both do a great job with those. I don't see a reason to necessarily believe that you would be able to meaningfully disrupt them. I did want to step back a little. There was one you mentioned just a minute ago where he said that Twitter is 10 times easier than Tesla. And I believe that without a doubt. You're not making a physical product. You're not managing a goods and supply chain that's global. Your entire product line can be handled in an office.
Okay.
So I agree with that.
We have less than a few more minutes, so let's go to the top topics that you can answer the most to. So you're saying that because of deflation, he's seeing deflation happen already with supply, but there's going to be a latency in the cost reduction. So somebody was asking him, won't you see reduction in cost in battery materials? They're spending capital as fast as they can without being wasteful, and they're close to picking a new factory location. Are you expecting Giga Mexico being announced today, this week?
Nope. Nope.
No?
I haven't seen anything that would indicate Giga Mexico is even coming. I know we've seen a lot of articles about it, but they all seem to point back to the same one rumor that we haven't really seen validated. And I believe the number of people who know definitively where the next factory will be is, I mean, you couldn't count them on just your fingers and toes, but it'd be real close to it. And the odds of one of those people leaking it. Now, is Mexico shortlisted? Very likely. But, so's Canada. I mean, we know they've been talking about Canada. And do you really think they would go Canada, US, Mexico? And Nueva Leon is so close to Austin already. And they're still expanding Austin. I don't know, man. If we find out that Giga Mexico is not happening, I've got some very choice words for people who are not yet my viewers.
Okay. Well, let's. The next four here are basically all about the fact that Tesla is well positioned to with cash, and they don't want to spend the money until they're really until they know what the recession is going to look like. But they're doing really well. There's questions about Twitter app on Tesla. I just said that. And then here's a good one for you to answer. He said the demand for energy storage is quasi-infinite. This was a question about how energy is just starting to ramp up, and yet the Tesla stock is not. People are not, registering it. And his answer has always been not about the stock, but just the fact that, listen, the energy storage is quasi-infinite. And he thinks of things as raw tonnage on how many gigawatts per hour per year battery pack can you make. What's your comment on this?
It is 100% correct. If you look back 10 years, megapack type installations did not exist. Large scale batteries for storage were limited to things like backup power at hospitals. And usually they were handled with deep cycle lead acid batteries that had to be replaced every 18 months, which is insane and outrageously, because these are $500-$600 batteries and they would have thousands of them that they're constantly managing anyway. Now you look at the South Australia Hornsdale Reserve, they replaced a peaker plant. Wait, you can do that? And they expanded it. They're expanding everywhere. In the US alone, there's 10,000 peaker plants. That means there's 10,000 opportunities to sell $100 million mega pack in the US alone.
Say that again.
Is every one of those going to make sense financially? Not today. Next year, there'll be a couple more that make the list. And each year after that, as prices continue to fall. You were talking about how you asked about the prices falling. The wholesale costs are absolutely falling. If you tried to hire an electrician a year ago, you couldn't get one, and now you can. And that's true of everything everywhere. Things are catching back up again. You remember a shipping container that used to be $3,000 to get from Shanghai to the port of Long Beach, all of a sudden was $30,000. It's back down to $3,000. We're back where we were. So a lot of these things, and it will take time because a lot of stuff you ordered has to get through the pipe first. So that's my thought, Herbert. How'd I do?
Good. You did great. And I think that Tesla Energy, Tesla Electric is just launched, and they're really going to start powering through next year. So all of your knowledge about the energy is going to really come and play much more and more and more gigawatt per hours as we build on it. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Have a happy holidays. See you soon.
Thank you, Herbert.
Thank you.